Hey everyone, it's Andy Kushner, host of The Wedding Biz. And before I introduce today's special guest, just want to say that I've really enjoyed bringing you The Wedding Biz for almost 3 years now, because I'm driven to support this industry by bringing you insights from our industry leaders. And the response has just really been incredible. So I thank you for tuning in and supporting the show by sharing it. And as the show has grown, so have the opportunities to bring you this great content. However, those opportunities have come at a financial cost. And the best way for me to keep maximizing the potential of this show is to ask you to become a patron. Now, patreon.com is a community-driven website where people can support creatives in delivering great content. And for a relatively small amount, you can lend me support to not only help you stay engaged with our industry's thought leaders, but also to expand on the kinds of content that The Wedding Biz delivers. And of course, you can contribute whatever you'd like. Please go to theweddingbiz.com/Patreon. That's theweddingbiz.com/Patreon, Patreon, today to sign up. There's a link in the show notes too. And not only will you be supporting the show, but you'll also be securing your access to solid, exclusive future content. So thank you. So last week's episode, if you missed it, was with Monty Durham, co-star of TLC's Say Yes to the Dress Atlanta. We had a very dynamic conversation. Monty's a really special guy, very charismatic, and had a whole lot to say, which included announcing his very exciting future plans. So be sure to check in last week if you missed it. This week, I now want to announce today's special guest, and that is Wendy EL-KHOURY, located in Sydney, Australia, and the owner of Wedded Wonderland, which gives its followers exclusive, on-trend, and immediate access to the latest celebrity news, wedding advice, beauty tips, and lifestyle inspiration. And under Wendy's direction, Wedded Wonderland is the bride's, socialites, and women's inside guide to the transformative periods of one's life. And they allow the audience to engage with creative suppliers, knowledgeable experts, and influential bloggers who set trends and create the benchmark for the bride and wedding community's expectations as they unfold. Wendy is often credited with the elevation and reinvigoration of the wedding industry in Australia. So enjoy my conversation with Wendy EL-KHOURY. Wendy, it is so good to have you on this show. I mean, we've been planning this for a while.
We sure have, and it's finally happening. Yay!
Yeah, and for those who might not know, you are in Australia. What part of Australia are you?
In Sydney.
You are in Sydney. That's what I thought. Is that where you grew up?
It is where I grew up. I'm originally from the Middle East, so my background is Lebanese. And I was born during the civil war there and moved a couple of places. We lived in Saudi Arabia. We lived in New Zealand, in Melbourne, and then eventuated in Sydney. But my father actually studied in Canada. So I've been over to Canada and to the States quite a few times.
And this is as you're growing up, you were moving this often.
Yeah, we moved around. Typical migrant story, I guess.
How do you think that affects you in terms of who you are today? Because I'm thinking about myself as well. I moved, my father was an anthropologist and he was going to graduate school and then going to another one. And then he got his first job. And then we moved to Israel to do his dissertation. And then we came back. I mean, it was an interesting thing for us to move every 2-3 years until I was about 12. What was it like for you? How do you think it affected you?
I think that it just made me love people from all over the world. And, you know, I like to learn about different cultures and I don't really, you know, have that experience where I go somewhere that's foreign and think, oh, you know, these people are weird and different. I kind of go, okay, well, what am I going to learn? What am I going to learn being here? So it does add a certain element of agility, I think, to my personality. Yeah, culturally, you're open to anything and everything. So did you have any kind of connection at all, any kind of passion for the event industry when you were growing up? I mean, what were your interests back then? I, from a very young age, and I actually just did this recently at Engage in Dubai, I can do this thing called ololating, which is a African calling, and it's also Middle Eastern, that you hear at weddings, and it's like the la 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 la. I don't know if you've heard it before.
Yes, I've heard that.
Yeah,
yes,
so I can do that like an old woman that lives in a village remotely, and it's something that is hereditary. And what's really funny is from a very young age at weddings, I was always called up to the microphone to do it. And my parents were invited to a lot of weddings and to bring me along to do this. And so I ended up being recorded by certain artists, and then the singers got to know who I was. So at the age of like 8,
wow,
I would be holding this microphone. So
that's
I was
crazy.
Yeah, it's a crazy thing.
So you had the performing bug at the age of 8.
Yeah. From a very, very young age, I was a bit of a performer. So, and part of that celebration, I guess.
Did you ever think of making that a career?
I never thought that it was something that could really be a career. You know, I studied, my parents were that go to university, get a great job, all of those kinds of things. And I did that. And my background's education, so I'm a teacher. And then I was a project manager for a number of years in one of our largest financial institutions. But I was always told that I was in the wrong place. Every manager that I worked with told me that I was too creative, too passionate, too loud as a person, and too colorful to be enclosed in 4 walls, I guess.
So when was the moment, and how did the thinking go for you to start getting, first of all, to be interested in events even before you made that switch? What brought that up for you in your life?
So as a side hustle, as I'm sure many people in the wedding industry would attest to, I had a lot of friends who were creatives. And so whenever they had a photo shoot on or an event, I was always the volunteer. And what happened was when I was working as a project manager, my brother, who is entrepreneurial, all of my siblings are, which my father says is something that he fought his whole life against for us. He just wanted us to get regular jobs and we're all entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
But he actually bought a wedding venue in Western Sydney.
Wow.
Yes, and he got a Master of Commerce and a software engineering degree. Mm-hmm. Had never worked in weddings. I'd never worked in weddings. And 3 weeks in, came home crying, asking me to leave my job and to come manage this venue.
Wow. Around what age were you? Just to kind of have this in perspective.
This was in 2010. So this is 10 years ago.
Oh, just 10?
Yeah.
Wendy, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Oh, you have built what you built in less than 10 years.
Oh, yeah. Wedded Wonderland's about 7 years old.
Oh my! Okay, we're going to come back to that.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll come back to that.
Okay.
That blows me away.
Yeah.
Okay, this changes everything here.
Yeah.
So you did that. So you left your job to manage this venue?
I left my job, and Western Sydney is renowned for it's a cultural hub. So we were doing weddings from Sierra Leone, Czechoslovakia. I was learning what a mandap was for an Indian ceremony. We were doing 21sts for the Tongan and Samoan community. I mean, I was completely mind blown in terms of these cultural celebrations that I never knew existed in Sydney. And so I was very much immersed into that world and never left.
And the way it went in that venue, were you also acting as the planner as well, or would they bring in their own?
Yeah. So acting as planner, acting as the designer, acting as the venue manager. I was buying chandeliers and Tiffany chairs 10 years ago. The way that I learned about social media was we advertised in print with the magazine. I begged my brother. I said, we've invested so much in this venue and we need people to know that we're here. And so I asked him for $2,500 and we invested in a print publication that ran half a page advert that didn't really do much for us at all. And I was so disheartened. And I thought to myself, how can I drive business? We're in Western Sydney. We're not in the city. We're not a CBD, waterfront venue, but we have so much to offer and we know our clients inside out and we have a cultural understanding of what's required as well. So I started a Facebook page for the business. And within 6 months, 90% of our inquiries were coming through Facebook in 2011. And that's how I taught myself about social media and the world of weddings online.
Now, just a technicality here. Were you doing Facebook ads? How did you get it to grow so quickly?
Back then, it was all organic. So I set up a Facebook page the service providers that we were working with, the vendors were confused, and they were excited because we were featuring some of their photos and I was writing the copy, and they said, I actually got an inquiry. You must have shared something of ours, and how does this Facebook thing even work, and can you show me? And so in my downtime, I was setting up Facebook pages for wedding businesses.
Wow.
And teaching them how to use it and growing our page organically. And, within a few months, the business had 10,000 followers, which was huge back then. We probably had one of the largest followings of any wedding venue in Australia.
Yeah. That's interesting. So what did you do next? I'm curious how you transition out from just that venue to this massive company you have now.
So what happened was, again, I started this side hustle, I guess, of assisting, free of charge, of course, these wedding businesses that we worked with in setting up their Facebook pages. Back then, Instagram didn't exist. And I thought, you know what? There are so many small businesses that I'm working with in here that I'm sure the entire wedding community needs to know about and other couples need to know about. And so I fell pregnant. And this was in 2012, and I didn't really want to be working at the pace that I was working at the venue because it was weekends. We were doing 6 events a weekend. It was, it was intense.
Did you just say 6? 6 events a weekend?
Yes, 6 events. And, 500 packs, 800 packs. I mean, I said, large, very intense cultural weddings, Turkish weddings that wanted to pay us at the end of the night with the money that was pinned on the bride. It was real. So I started Wedded Wonderland really as an outlet for myself because I got to know so many incredible people in the wedding industry that I wanted to be able to celebrate online. I wanted to be able to showcase their work, and really I wanted to be able to talk about these cultural weddings and events that were happening in Australia because I got married in 2011 and there was not a single publication that I picked up where a girl looked like me.
Incredible.
There were very, very little knowledge. It's not to say that people didn't want to. It was just that they didn't know that a market had existed for the luxury and the cultural wedding market. And so I guess being the first social media player in Australia meant that from the time I fell pregnant to when I was delivering, we had 100,000 followers on Facebook.
Wow. Oh, I just don't know how you were managing to do all of that. So did you eventually get out of the venue, or what happened with that?
Yes. Once I fell pregnant, I realized that, again, I stayed for a couple of months and I still helped out up until I had the baby and, a few months after that. But Wedded Wonderland became this platform that I really wanted to drive and showcase people's work and show the industry how to talk about their own products online.
Yeah. So how did you, it still though, it sounds like, I understand that it was an organic development, but you must have put something in place though to still jump it up to the level that you have now, or did it just to continue to be a gradual build on its own? The
first 2 years, I would say, was very much an organic play. And I was very fortunate to start at a time where Facebook was organic, Instagram was organic. And then when I realized that it could actually be a business and it was something that was in very high demand, the number of inquiries that we were receiving from all over the world and the demand for content, because, back then, again, there weren't many people playing in the online content space in weddings. Yes. I realized that I needed to invest in staff. I needed to understand what this offering actually meant, how to charge for it, how to measure what the success rate was of an online campaign. But I had to learn all of these things. I didn't know, somebody once asked me, I remember what please send us your media kit. And I was like, what's a media kit? And I had to Google what a media kit was. And, I had to Google once I was asked for my headshot and my bio. And I was like, what do I send to this person? I don't even know. I really didn't get with the lingo in terms of from a media perspective because my background is not media.
Yeah, this is incredible. You did all by yourself. Well, when is the point that you started to hire a team?
Probably, about 2 years in. I did have, for example, somebody come on quite early on to create a graphic, a logo, a font type, all of those kinds of things, which I knew was important for online. Because I thought, if people are going to recognize Wedded Wonderland, I need to have a logo. I need to have some kind of brand identity.
Yes.
And then I also hired an assistant to be able to, I guess, funnel all of these sales that were coming through and give me an idea of what people wanted. But probably 2 years in, I had my first hire.
And how many people do you have now?
So now we have, now in downtime, I have 3.5 staff, but generally I have 6 to 8 working in the team, depending on when we have our really large scale events that we're driving. We have gone up to that 10 mark.
Yeah.
But I find staff to be one of the biggest challenges.
What do you mean by that? How is it a challenge?
And as I work with and I consult to so many wedding businesses, I think there's an element of creative control that as business owners we like to have in our own businesses. I think that we move so quickly as creatives and we need people who are really agile and can do a bit of everything. And I know that when you're putting a job description together and when you're really trying to identify what it is that you want to hire, as small business owners, we have different, methodologies in terms of how we manage our clients, in terms of how we manage our content, in terms of how we manage our events. We need people who understand the bigger picture of how this business operates. Yeah. I think that when you hire people, and I've done this, I've hired people who've come from really large organizations who have had one role, objective for that entire business and have done that incredibly well. But as a small business owner, we need people who can juggle with us. Definitely.
Yeah. And you had mentioned, in a slow time, in a little while, I do want to talk about your perspective on dealing with the impact of what we're dealing with right now. At the time of this recording, it's April and we've got the coronavirus. So in a minute, I want to come back to that. But I'm still curious. I know that on Wedded Wonderland, you're providing all this wonderful information, wedding advice, all of this connected to weddings. But you're also talking about beauty tips and lifestyle inspiration. And how did you come around to adding that to the mix?
We've always said that the Wedded Wonderland follower is somebody who is in love with the idea of being in love. And in love with the idea of getting married. So we have, on board, if you call it that term, our follower into our community way before she's actually engaged. So he has a very firm understanding of what he's looking for when it comes to the wedding, way before that ring is on the finger. And we need to be able to stay on trend. And the way that you do that is by talking about fashion and beauty and lifestyle, because that's what people invest in on a day-to-day basis. And we are very celebrity-centric at Wedded Wonderland. We understand that the celebrities are the ones who are setting the trends when it comes to weddings and events. And the fashion... That's
right, the fashion industry. Yeah.
Runways and and these incredible designers. So that's who our follower looks to when they're being inspired. And so that's who we talk to as well.
Do you find that people even continue after the weddings? I imagine they do.
Yeah, they can't let go. It's so funny. I just had a bride send a message to us on Instagram who said she had a memory pop up on her feed that said that we'd featured her wedding 6 years ago, and it just brought her so much joy that she was featured on Wedded Wonderland once upon a time. So we definitely have a community that I guess has a certain sentiment and attachment to us, and because we don't necessarily and purely just focus on weddings. And I think that that's important for any wedding business, is that you need to understand what's happening in, the wider market, in the special event market, the private event market, the fashion side of things, because that's what influences our decisions in how we actually celebrate today.
That's right. Well, and also I know that in addition to all of that, I don't know if this is a separate piece or part of it, the Women's Inside Guide to the Transformative Periods of One's Life. Can you tell me about that?
So we believe that the time in which you are planning a wedding is transformative. You get to engage and communicate with your the people who are nearest and dearest to you. And so it is a time where you feel as though there is a certain sentiment attached to it, and any decisions that are played out during that particular moment in time will be remembered. Mm-hmm. So we really like to talk to the fact that you're not just planning a wedding, you're planning a marriage. And it takes a village, and we really play to that sentiment online.
Well, I do want to come a little bit into what is going on today. with the coronavirus at this time, we're all having to shelter in place. We're in the thick of it. I don't even know in Australia if they're considering that they're at the peak yet of this. If not, we're near it. So, this is really tough, right? Businesses are in the wedding industry are having a very hard time. So are the couples. They're having to postpone their weddings. And, how are you feeling about this, and how are you dealing with it? And what are you recommending people consider?
Sure. So I'm just trying to be as empathetic as possible to whatever position someone's in, because that couple who's postponed their wedding may also have lost a job, or may have a family member who's ill, or may be working with a business owner who doesn't know whether they're going to be open in 3 months or in 6 months or in 12 months' time. We're all in limbo. And I think as an industry, we need to accept the fact that we don't know what's going to happen, but what we need to do is learn about how we can give as much information as possible and how we can communicate with one another to give comfort at a time like this. I think that's the only thing that we can really do. I've been jumping on and doing more lives and really trying to, I guess, drive businesses to share more online in terms of what they're focusing on, whether they're being creative at home, whether they're, reflecting on past weddings and the sentiments with their couples and celebrating their anniversaries, whether it's wanting to collaborate with another supplier and finding out a way to do that online in a really creative way. We just went live with a band, a DJ, and a comedian on Wedded Wonderland to entertain our followers.
Wow.
Yeah, we just went, you know what? These entertainers are sitting at home and they're not doing what they love.
That's right.
And how can we engage them? So we thought, let's just get them on. And we were singing and dancing and laughing and...
Oh, that's wonderful.
Showcasing talents. And, a couple of people were like, oh my goodness, I'm going to book that band when it comes to my wedding.
Wow.
I mean, this is what it happens, like that. So you have to use your platform right now to drive, interest and business in these people that you've worked with for so long that have supported you as well.
Well, what are some of the main issues that are coming up that people are really struggling with right now? I know we just went through the gamut of all of it, but what are the main ones that you're coming up with, and how are you handling it?
Yep. So a really big one, obviously, is the loss of income and for how long.
Yes.
And that big question mark around that. Staff, and whether you can keep staff, whether you can, put your staff on hold for the time being. Again, their loss of income and what the implications of that is. The industry's used to being very busy.
That's right.
I think there's a certain adrenaline that is now has been taken away, and when people are so used to running on an adrenaline and they come down from that, there are a lot of mental issues that come as a result of that. So people could be second guessing their art, whether
right.
they're going to be in business.
It's how they define themselves.
Exactly. This creatives define themselves by what they give and what they do.
That's
and
right.
how they work their hands and how they work their heart and their mind. So I think that from a psychological perspective, that's another really big element that not many people have spoken about in the wedding and event space. And it's something that I'm really mindful of. And I check in with so many of the businesses that we work with via newsletter, via lives, via text messages, via emails, just to see how people are going mentally, because I think that that's going to be really above everything, the long-term effect of this.
Yes.
Is the impact of whether, we come out of this stronger, or whether we come out of this second guessing or feeling like the rug's been ripped out from under us.
That's right.
But are we going to fly, or are we going to fall? And you need to have a community of people around you who are going to hold you up during this time, because you are going to have down days. That's the reality of it.
In terms of specific advice about this, I mean, I've been thinking for myself, for me, it's been really important to keep my routine. I think that's one of the first things, which can easily go away. I still wake up at the same time early in the morning. I meditate, I stretch, I have some kind of a workout, keeping that morning routine. Are there any specific advice that you have for people who are struggling with this issue?
Yeah, I definitely think that spending too much time online is something that can be detrimental to you, especially if you see other people who are really thriving and you're having a really off day, for example.
Or appear to be thriving.
Or appear to be, I think that perception is everything right now.
It is, yeah.
So I definitely think that you need to set a list of tasks, of things that you've always wanted to do, and just work through that. And I think, as a creative industry, if you have a list and you kind of have ticked 3 things off that by the end of the day, you're feeling like you're achieving something and you feel like you're getting one step closer to whatever goal you've set for yourself. So some people are doing things from a diet perspective, from a health standpoint, from, I say to some businesses who are feeling very lonely, who may have very large followings and may be quite well known, but just don't know how to reach out because they have always been the leaders and they just don't know what to do.
That's right. And because none of us really know.
No one really knows. So I think, just jumping online and saying, hey guys, how are you feeling today? How can I make your day? What can I do for you? Like I said, it is an industry of giving. And so if you are feeling down and out, try and find like-minded business owners or your peers or your colleagues, because let me tell you, you are not in this alone, and whatever you are feeling, someone else out there is definitely in the same boat as you.
Yeah, I'm finding too, I like when people the industry leaders are also vulnerable themselves. Recently I've been interviewing various people, David Stark, Brian Raffinelli, David Beam, Sean Lowe, various people about how they are doing it. And like you say, nobody really has the right answer, but it's cathartic to be able to hear the industry leaders also sometimes feeling the same thing that we are.
Exactly.
And then to hear about how they're talking about it. I mean, one of the common themes here, it's almost becoming cliche at this point, is finding the opportunity in this. Because I do believe there are gifts, Wendy. I think, and I think it's the only way to look at this is to somehow, and again, I understand that some people are really dealing with serious issues like financial stresses and all that, but to stay as calm as we can, keep these routines. And there is an opportunity to reinvent ourselves in some ways. And I'm finding that some people are coming up with completely new ways of doing business. I have a big thing I'm going to be announcing in a couple of weeks with the wedding biz. And so I do think there's a chance to re-examine how we're doing not just personally our lives, but our careers.
Definitely. And I think that we need to think about what options we will have for our couples when the time comes. I think that we need to think about what kind of position do we want our businesses to be in when that first wedding inquiry can come through, and that 10th one and that 20th one. Where do we want to be? How do we want to be situated? I think the worst thing to come out of all of this is that we would be in the exact same position that we were beforehand.
We can't. Yeah.
We can't. It would be sad because we've been through so much as a global industry. It's the first time ever as a global wedding industry, we are all experiencing the exact same thing.
That's right.
Surely there are some lessons to be learned here, and people are jumping on all over the world, sharing advice, sharing tips. There are so many online courses that are now available free of charge. I think that, again, not overwhelming ourselves and thinking, I have to do every online course and I have to do everything and I'm going to be the best and all of that. But definitely, if you are struggling with something, or if you are thinking about reinventing yourself, or, what options may need to be available. Like we were just online with Chateau West, which is a phenomenal outdoor wedding venue, probably the most luxurious in Lebanon, which do the really large scale and luxury weddings. And, I was saying, well, if it comes to a time where we can only do 50 pax weddings, and you have a couple that comes to you and still has a budget for 500 people and still wants somehow to connect their family from all over the world, what are you going to do about it?
Is there anything that with Wedded Wonderland that you're doing differently? Any new programs? What about yourself? Have you had any epiphanies?
Definitely. I've always wanted to do 2 things. Yeah. And now the time has come. So
okay.
One is, and I've, as some would know, I've spoken internationally on social media and digital content strategies for quite a number of years, and consulted, globally, and I've never had an online course. And I think there's no time like the present. I think that I definitely need to get something out as soon as possible that people can really apply, particularly to their social media from a tactical and a strategic perspective. So understanding what kind of content to be sharing right now, amidst this pandemic, as well as, viable evergreen content that can live on, that actually allows people to identify and connect with you and engage with you as a business owner. So we have online courses launching from next month, and I have been filming them after 8 p.m. when my kids go to sleep. And then the other thing is I've always wanted to work on a lead generation platform for the wedding industry, whereby couples have access to exclusive promotions and offerings from the premium and luxury market. and the premium luxury market get to give us a call to action opportunity to be able to offer something to our couples. So I find that the premium and luxury market find it very difficult, and I don't encourage, online discounting and, we're 30% off because what are you 30% off from, right? So, but I definitely think that as soon as this pandemic is over, businesses are going to need business. Couples are going to need exclusive offerings and deals, and wherever they can get value add, they're going to be looking for it. And so we are now creating a platform to be able to bring these two together. And essentially that's what Wedded Wonderland will be.
Wow, Wendy, that's wonderful. I'm going to definitely want to put in the show notes, how to get information and get connected to all of this.
Thank you.
Yeah. Also, you have this expertise among many in social media, digital strategy. I would think that that's an area where people right now with the slowdown can maybe build and focus on.
Definitely.
I think that's really important. Do you have any specific advice how they can do that, take it to another level for themselves?
Sure. So I definitely think that there are a few key things that you need to be doing. You need to jump onto Google Trends, and you need to have a look at what people are researching in terms of weddings right now, and put in similar like terms. So, for example, how to postpone a wedding. Can I get married in the fall? Can I get married in spring? What's a boutique wedding look like? How to postpone with invitations. How do I send out a save the date? Whatever the case may be, and whatever is relevant to your business, Google Trends will tell you what people are searching most. And you can break it down into your region.
Yeah.
So you can break it down right into your suburb, if not your jurisdiction, and then further out to your state. So just depending on what your offering is. If you have a business that is driven by online traffic, you need to be including all of these keywords into your content strategy, because that's what people are researching right now, and that's how they're going to find you.
Wow, great idea. Also assuming that we do get back on track with the calendar, I'd love to hear more about, you've got some conferences. You've got Inspire, the one-day conference. You've got the Planners Extraordinaire. Can you talk a little bit about the different conferences you have and when they are?
Yeah, sure. So we have hosted Inspire now 2 years in a row, and we've hosted, which is a whole series of incredible experts that actually probably 90% of them sit outside the wedding industry. We have influencers, fashion designers, we've had doctors, all sorts of people who I really like to learn from, because I think in the wedding industry we have to look outside of ourselves to really grow and be inspired by what's happening in other creative spaces. And so that conference generally takes place in October, and it has been very successful 2 years in a row. This year, we have to see how we're going to play it out, and maybe an online event where we give access to information. The same thing with Wedded World. We host Australia's largest luxury wedding event called Wedded World, and we've done that for the past 3 years. Last year it was at the Hyatt Regency. We had over 1,200 people come. We had 150 looks on the runway and 250 exhibitors, and it was just this huge event.
Wow.
And we do that annually. Again, we generally do it in June, July. This year, it will not be taking place in a physical format, but we are looking at ways to integrate an online opportunity, both for the consumer and for the industry. So we are definitely getting creative in terms of how we can bring our events to life, and that experience to both sides of the coin that we work with.
I love that you're still going to continue these online. I think that's really important. I mean, if anything, we need it more than ever, these conferences.
Yeah, and I think that it's the legacy of things. I recently speaking at Engage, I was talking to, different business owners who were talking about certain things that they've done, and they don't know whether they should continue with it. It's not really working online for them, for example. So many people, my topic actually was Instagram fatigue, and so many people kind of being disgruntled with this online platform and how to make it work. I think, if you have an idea and it has worked previously, maybe it's about the platform that you're sharing it on. Maybe it's about the way that you're engaging with people. And, ask the question. Like, we've been running this survey now for this lead generation platform. What do you want from us? Mm-hmm. What kind of suppliers are you looking for? What kind of opportunities are you after? You have to, and through Instagram, through stories, you can ask these questions. There's the poll opportunity. Just use social media right now to engage with your audience and ask them what they want, and don't be disgruntled and kind of let go of certain legacies within your business, because now's not the time to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's great. And before we start to wrap up, talking about trends, do you already have some kind of feel for what you think the wedding and event industry is going to look like, during recovery and after? What do you think will be different?
Look, I think celebrations are definitely going to be, uber sentimental. I think people are really going to want every single family member captured by that photographer. The brief is going to be a mile long, for the cinematographers. But I do think that the first trend will be local destination weddings, for sure.
Yeah.
Yep. So anyone who has worked internationally needs to start thinking about what Positano looks like somewhere in the States, right?
Yeah.
And be able to recreate these international destination weddings that people wanted, because for the next 12 to 18 months, I don't think that's going to happen. So local destination weddings is going to be a massive opportunity. Again, I think there's going to be hens and bucks nights, engagement parties, pre-weddings events that are all going to have some sort of destinational element in them, some sort of experiential element in them. People are going to want to see their family and friends and going to want to bring an experience. And I think we need to prepare ourselves as an industry for that.
Wow. I think that is really great trend to think about. I think that's absolutely right on point. Is there anything else before we wrap up that you'd like to say to people during this time? I mean, it really is this is a point in history that we're going to be looking back on.
Absolutely. And so I think that if we are going to look back at this time, we definitely want to look back at it as a time that we reflected on who we are, what our offering is, the longevity of our businesses, and really, really, really what we want to be doing that we love and how we want to be sharing that with our communities. And the opportunities are there. Like I said, we have been working with so many businesses in terms of online offerings. I think now is the time for all of those businesses that don't like technology. Guess what? Bad luck. Get on it.
Right. Right. It's time.
It's time. You have to. There's no other choice of the matter. You have to learn how to do Zoom meetings. You have to learn how to navigate, even if it's a simple landing page for your website. The only way people are going to find you right now and connect with you is online. So make it work and fall in love with it and find a platform that works for you and just run with it.
I love your perspective on this, Wendy. Yeah. This is great. I have one more question for you, a little more personal to wrap up on.
Yeah.
How do you view success, whether it's personal or in your career or both? How do you think about that?
I'm very hard on myself, I have to say. I think that success for me would mean that I have impacted as many people as possible in a positive way that has brought out the best in them and their potential. That's what success is to me, and I don't think that I'm there yet. I think that I constantly drive that, but for me it's about igniting human potential and really allowing and enabling people to do what they love best and them being successful at it. And, for me, nothing makes me happier than seeing a small business thrive and make money and see value in what they do. So I just hope to do a lot more of that. And I think for any business owner, it really is knowing that you've brought joy and you've brought something new and something exciting to someone's life. And that in itself is success.
Well, Wendy, on behalf of the community, I want to thank you because I believe you are bringing a whole lot of that already. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to my conversation with Wendy EL-KHOURY. Be sure to check out her site, which is weddedwonderland.com. Again, weddedwonderland.com. Social media handle is @weddedwonderland. And be sure to check out the show notes at our website of theweddingbiz.com. And if you enjoyed it, please share it with your friends and colleagues. Would also love if you could give a top review wherever you find your podcast. And don't forget to listen to our follow-on segment that comes out each week on Wednesday called The Next Level, in which I have a guest co-host. And together we talk about some of the highlights of the interview and help break them down into specific tactics and tips for you to use to raise your own business to the next level. And this week's guest co-host, I'm so excited to say, is going to be John Emmanuel, Australia's premier floral designer, who appeared on the show back in January, on January 13th. Also want to thank our sponsor for today, Kushner Entertainment. If you want to get very high-touch music and entertainment, be sure to check out KushnerEntertainment.com. Again, KushnerEntertainment.com, and we'll catch you next week on The Wedding Biz.